It's hard to open the newspaper today or turn on the television without hearing or reading that someone is talking about artificial intelligence. Our next guest, Guy Morris, has written a book called The AI Tsunami, a survival guide for humanity. Here to break it down for us is Guy Morris. Welcome to The Truth.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
So, what led you to write the book?
40 years of working in the tech industry and seeing the realization and watching the technology advance faster than any of us really had anticipated, and not seeing the kind of guardrails we would like to see in order to keep this safe for humanity. And so I started by writing some thrillers, hoping to do the whole Michael Crichton thing of, getting people excited with the narrative story like he did with Jurassic Park. And those have won multiple awards, but I felt like I needed to go a step farther and really help people get over their fear and help develop a plan for how they're going to approach this inevitable event.
Well, the technology does seem to be advancing at an ever increasing rate. Where do you think the world will look like in 5 years from now relative to AI?
Oh, well, that's a really complicated question. Which aspect of the world are we talking about? There are a number of different areas that AI will affect, from job markets to productivity to investments, the stock market, environment, or the power grid, water supplies, relationships, elections, war developments. AI is a technology that could impact dozens of different aspects of our lives, and some of it in paradigm changing ways. And
Don't
so
you think most of it is going to be overwhelmingly positive? I mean, I'll just give you a brief
some of it will
example.
be.
My mom,
Mhm.
God love her and rest her soul, was a wonderful cook, and she collected recipes as a hobby. And we all loved it when she would actually cook and use her recipes, and they were delicious. So when
Mhm.
she passed away, I got all of the recipes. My wife also likes to cook. My, my mom would never share them with anybody when she was living, but I wanted to share them with my wife, and I did. And so I asked her to cook something, and she went and found the recipe. Darned if it wasn't all in shorthand. You couldn't read it. So I just moved, and in the course of the move, I un
Mom didn't want to share.
I unpacked boxes, and there were the recipes. And I
Uh-huh.
said, I'm just going to try something. I took a
Mhm.
picture of it in Grok, and Grok transposed the recipe perfectly.
Mhm.
And now I have resurrected several hundred of my mom's recipes. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is mind boggling what it's capable of doing.
I have been an advocate for technology my entire career. I was advocating for technology before there was a single computer on any desktop in America. And I've gone through waves and waves and waves of these changes, watching early adopters make some classic mistakes and others basically avoid it and lose their competitive edge. And we're in kind of a paradigm. There's no question that AI will bring some incredible innovations. And more so than recipes out of Grok, AI
Right.
will help solve cancers, will help create better drugs, new materials, will help solve large intractable problems that we're having difficulties solving today because of the massive amounts of data. AI will benefit. AI's already got applications that can fit on your phone that can basically scan for heart disease in infants, prenatal heart disease in infants before they're even born. AI is faster at detecting cancer cells out of MRI scans, faster and more accurate than any doctor on the planet. There are going to be benefits. The questions that I'm asking are, what are the costs, and are we prepared for those? In installing every major, expensive, complicated, risky enterprise system I've ever worked on, one of the key things that I was always able to teach my teams to do and teach my customers to do was the value of a really rigorous risk management process, weighing the pros and the cons, what can go wrong, how could it go wrong, how are we going to mitigate or deal with that if it does. And right now we're dealing with a social, global, um, uh, you know, consequence kind of conversation, and we're not really having enough of those conversations about who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers, and what could be the transition of our humanity in the process.
Well, we all have an optimism bias, I think.
Mhm.
And so I've just sort of have just looked forward to all the benefits of artificial intelligence. I had to drive on I-95 this morning, and I entered my destination and hit the go button on my Tesla Model X, and 20 minutes later, I arrived in the parking lot, and the car uh, pulled into the parking space. It's
Great benefit.
truly amazing.
Great benefit. Absolutely. But what about lethal autonomous weapons that get out of control?
Hmm.
What about, did you know that on the dark web today, there are products that can be downloaded and purchased called dark web, fraud GPT, worm GPT, chaos GPT, darkbird. These are applications, AI applications designed to specifically create malware and phishing and other frauds.
Hmm.
Deep fakes have already cost a couple of some companies in England hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were good enough to be able to convince a CEO to transfer $250,000 to somebody that turned out to be deep fake, and that's happened more than once.
Oh, yeah.
We're also looking at the environmental issues of some of these data centers. Now, there's almost 300 of them planned. They're stalling a little bit because of the extreme power grid, water depletion, and other costs. So the question is, if a community loses their water and their power is costs double or triple, and so that we can get trinkets like being able to download and do a, a, a menu or a recipe. Those are great things. I'm not saying there aren't going to be great
No,
things.
I
What I am
understand your
saying
point
is that
for
we
sure.
really need to do the cost benefit analysis on this before it's too late.
Well, how do you control it? Because I think every country, every major country in the world, Russia, China,
Mhm.
you pick it, they've got their own AI, and
Yep.
we have a difficult time controlling them as it is. We can't get Russia out of the Ukraine, and China wants
Yep.
to move on Taiwan, and then what's going on in Iraq or Iran rather, and we can't control our adversaries
No, but we
physically.
have
How
had
are we going to
success
do
in
it
the
with
past.
computers?
We have had success in the past with nuclear weapons, developing SALT treaties and other treaties to say if these are left out of control, they could be bad for humanity. Let's make sure that we're protecting our citizens and ourselves by agreeing to where those boundaries and those guardrails are going to be, and what do we do if we cross them. That's not unheard of, and that's something we should be doing. There was a treaty, in discussion. It was non-binding in around 2018-19 called laws, lethal autonomous weapon systems. 140 countries signed up for it. Laws basically said it's great to use AI to improve the accuracy of a weapon, the operation of a weapon, the design of a weapon, but there needs to be a human in the decision loop before that weapon is allowed to take a life. And lethal autonomous weapons basically allows weapons to basically decide that you're a target and decide that it's time for you to go without any human involved. And we already know, one of my books, Swarm, talks about what some of those weapons that the US is working on. My book, The Last Ark, talks about some of those weapons that Israel's working on, in China. And so we're dealing with things that are already in place and are already in progress. Is it a problem? Absolutely. Should we be aware of it? Did it stop our lives in the Cold War? No, we went on living. We went to work. We went to school. We went our lives. But there was an underlying threat to humanity that was unresolved until we could agree to resolve it. And so my argument is we should be working on those treaties now.
Good point. I agree with you. Where did you spend the early part of your or your career in high tech?
Well, I started off. I got notoriety in college. I built a macroeconomic model that outperformed the Federal Reserve and changed how the world builds models to this day. That got me accepted into the Harvard MBA program. I got a full scholarship to my grad school in Arizona. I was given a job at IBM, and I started off in high tech with IBM and Burroughs, building high tech mainframe machines. Moved there to a big oil company, exploration company, Occidental, where I was reporting to CXOs for strategy planning, M&A, all kinds of other analysis. And then I decided that I wanted out of the oil business. The oil business, I I have children and grandchildren. I just had my first great grandchild, and I
Oh,
want to leave a
congrats.
healthier environment for them. Thank you. And so I moved into the tech industry, starting off with a small startup company, and then moved into Oracle and then Microsoft.
Well, you've had a wonderful career.
Yeah.
So, as I said, I'm kind of more focused on the positives of AI. What do you, and I'm not saying
Mhm.
that that's a good thing. I think we all need to be conscious of the potential pitfalls and that we ought to be encouraging the policymakers to be proactive on it. I
Bingo.
get your message loud and clear, and I certainly concur. But I'm equally, or maybe a little more, excited about the potential of what AI can do for us. What are some of the
Well,
things that
well,
you feel like are the most exciting?
And to be clear, in the book, I go through all of the goods, the bads, the uglies of AI. I help you understand the history, the cert components, things you're using today, what parts don't have hardly any risk at all, where do we see the risk, and how can you, as an individual or a professional or small business owner, build a strategy for you to both thrive and survive. So it's not that we should ignore AI. AI is all bad. What I am saying in the book is that there's a lot of pieces that you do need to be aware of and be cautious of while you're planning for how to take advantage of it. So, for example, right now, biometric identification is really popular. Even some of the bigger companies, my old company, Microsoft, is pushing it. I think it's dangerous. It's using your thumbprint or your facial recognition or iris scan to provide for your personal data security. The problem is we all think that somehow these systems are secure, and they're not. In 2001 or 2020, 2021, 2.5 million identities were hacked out of Clearview, which is the company that's at the airports to help process people through the airport faster by validating your identity. Great idea, but there was a lot of government employees, a lot of executives, some of the members of Microsoft that I know were part of that program. All of us thinking this is great technology until it was hacked, and all 2.5 million of those identities were sold on the dark web.
Unbelievable. So, what would people
Probably
use the stolen identities for?
I can now have all the digital data for your facial recognition. I can use a deep fake to reproduce it, and I can use that information to basically hack into a security system.
That is scary stuff.
And once now, if they had stolen your password and your ID and your password, that's a pain in the butt to reset. But you can reset it. Once they have your
Yeah, if they haven't cleaned your
facial
bank account
identity,
out and before you get to it.
yeah, once they have your facial identity, once they have your biometrics, they own you for good. You'll never get that identity back.
Hmm.
So that's just
Interesting
one
point.
area.
Yeah.
Fraud areas. There's a number of people who are getting calls right now. Dad, this is your daughter, your
Hmm.
son. I just had a car accident. They won't tow me unless I give them Bitcoin. I need you to send Bitcoin to this account right away. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Help me out, Dad.
Hmm.
And people are falling for that because the voices sound exactly like their
I have,
interactions with
I
your
have heard.
relatives,
Yeah, that's
except
scary.
they're deep fakes. And so
So,
if you're not aware of what's going on, you could easily fall into these things.
so I've heard every family should have a key word that if you get that call, you say, you know, who is grandmommy, and it's
Well, you don't want
whatever.
to use something that could be easily found online through social media or any other means. You have to have something that isn't available someplace else. But
Right.
that is a good strategy, is to have that keyword or that key phrase to basically pass through. Another one is just simple. Call your daughter right back. Hey, did you just call me?
Hmm.
No? You know? Okay, well then I just got a scam call. So these are
I
not
get an email a
unsolvable,
day.
but they need awareness.
I
Go
get
ahead.
an email a day, if not two or three, encouraging me to do something that requires me to open an attachment. And I look at the sender, and it has my company's name
But
on the
it's a
line,
Gmail
and then
account.
I click on it, and it's somebody in Siberia that is actually sending it. And so
Yeah.
if there's an attachment and I'm not expecting it, it just gets deleted.
Now, some of the other things that we could be concerned with is mass surveillance. China's already doing this. And they're doing it with some of our technologies, and we're now moving closer in that direction as well. So these are things that should involve what I'm telling people is that this is not something where it's good for you to just sit by and let it happen. If you want to have more control over your own personal lives and your children, could affect your careers, could affect education, could affect jobs, could affect governance, could affect data centers in your community, water tables in your community, power grids. This is the time to get engaged. The time to get
I,
engaged, to be informed, to know what's going on, and then get engaged in your community, in your schools, and in your families to help prepare.
God, don't you think the horse is already out of the barn though? I mean, we got flock
Absolutely.
cameras on every intersection, license plate
It's not going
scanners in
anywhere.
every
That's why I'm
neighborhood.
telling people to get on and get engaged with this, because it's not going anywhere.
Well,
Here's the three things that, go ahead.
what is your engagement going to do? They ain't going to take down those cameras. They're not going to
No,
stop reading license plates.
but you could get involved with your civic communities and say, we don't want those cameras in our communities. And some communities are being successful in taking them down or disconnecting them.
But don't
Not
the
all, but
benefits outweigh the perceive or the potential harm in that they
that
really do
depends
help
on.
find bad guys, right?
So, should they be watching all of us to catch the few of us that are bad guys? That's the question that I can't answer for you.
Well,
Everyone else,
I know
we
that I was surveilled this morning when I got on I-95,
can.
but I don't think anybody was actually watching me. I just think it's there if they need to find me, or if I was wanted, then it would through whatever recognition it would pop up. I guess a license plate reader or something would
Yeah.
detect.
An AI could watch 24/7. So if there's a person there or not anymore, is no longer relevant. The AI could be looking for certain things, and AIs are prone to make mistakes as well. The question I try and pose people is that what we're dealing with is a paradigm change on three levels. And how it might play out, how whether it'll be dystopian or utopian, will depend on decisions that we're making in our lives and in our communities and our governance. The three levels are simple. AI will become smarter than any human on the planet, and that's not within decades, that's only within a year or two, if it hasn't already achieved that in a lab somewhere. Two, AI will replicate. The current commercial version of Claude is already 80% written and tested by Claude. The other AIs are not far behind that, usually in the 60 to 70% range. But the fact is, we're getting closer and closer to a machine that can correct and update and code itself
Mhm.
without humans being involved. And so the old Jurassic Park movie, right? Life will find a way. This is a digital form of life. And the third one, which is I think the most frightening, which is we are already training these machines right now, certain selected machines, not all of them, but we are training certain AIs on how to target and kill humans without a human involved. Those two or three things combined represent areas that are unknown in human history. We've never not been the smartest thing on the planet. The question I always ask is, okay, that's great. Who Let's not assume that the technology is evil or benign. It reflects humanity, which means it reflects both our good and our dark angels. And we're already seeing AIs learn how to do malicious things like deceive and manipulate and harm people. So the question I have, though, I think the more immediate concern that I address is, are we mature enough as a species to have this powerful technology in the world without having guardrails and controls? What happens if a drug lord gets it? A sociopathic billionaire, a dictator, a warlord, a corrupt politician or CEO? The potential for using the technology for harm in a very subtle, almost imperceivable way is high. And so it's important for us to be aware of what's going on, protect ourselves personally, and then advocate for those things socially that we want to accept.
As you know, we don't put our name on anything that we haven't tried and believe in. So when I tell you about Nessa's Hemp, I want you to listen up. Nessa's Hemp is a Chicago based company that makes hemp, and it was founded by Anessa. And what she's built is really something. We're talking about clean, high quality hemp products with no gimmicks, just real ingredients, real transparency with real results. Whether you're dealing with stress, sleep issues, inflammation, or you just want to add something natural to your wellness routine, Nessa's Hemp has something to offer you. Head over to nesahemp.com. That's NESAS hemp.com and check out what they've got. Use our promo code TRUTH for a discount just by being our listener. So, am I going to have a little buddy following me around very soon to mow the grass, clean the dishes, and make the bed?
Little Rosie the robot. Yeah, we're all hoping for one of those. Yeah, I want a Rosie. I'm actually more excited for my flying car. Um, uh,
Yes.
I live on the Puget Sound across the water. I have to take a ferry if I want to go anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would love to just be able to buzz over and
Well,
buzz over the water and get to where I
there
want
are
to
a
go.
couple that are already commercially available,
Yep,
and
yep, yep.
they don't cost that much money. I spend a lot of time on YouTube,
Hmm.
probably too much, according to my wife, but there's some fascinating stuff there.
Yeah,
And just in the
you've got
last
to.
week, I've noticed there is a deluge of videos about flying cars. And
Yeah,
one I saw was basically a lawnmower with a seatbelt, is for like 15 grand. And then there's another one that looks more futuristic that's for
yeah, yeah.
$55,000.
There are
I
some
would buy
pretty
one
risky
if,
ones out there.
I'm sorry.
There are some risky ones out there, but there's some also high production ones out there, like the Jetson.
Sure.
China's going to make some prices. Well, right now, the good ones are running around 150,000, but that price will come down over the next few years.
Yeah, but a lot of
And
people
that's what
pay
I'm
that
counting
much
on.
for a souped up automobile. I'd much rather have a flying souped up automobile.
That's
But
right.
my problem is that I live a mile from Mar-a-Lago and I'm in the temporary flight restricted area, that temporary for the 4 years. And so I would probably make it from my front yard to the seawall before I got shot down or
Yeah, I don't
a
think any of them
constable.
come with missile defense yet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it would be well received. Well,
You just got to go with the flow.
well,
Um, but yeah, listen. I'm an advocate for the technology, but I'm an advocate for the technology and protecting people. We've already seen people get hurt, and the AI executives themselves are saying that we need greater guardrails. They need greater global alliance onto what the guardrails and the boundaries are going to be on this. In part because it's very difficult to develop something where you've got half a dozen states looking at different things different ways, and you've got different countries looking at different things different ways. If no other reason than for the business continuity, it's in our best interest to basically get together and agree on what the legislation guardrails that we want to place on these technologies are, so that the companies themselves aren't being whipsawed around. Now, part of that whipsaw that we saw recently with Mythos and Fable 5 is that many countries, and I've seen some articles from India and Canada and the EU, that are saying that it's possible that the American AI models are going to be too unreliable in terms of access. They need to either develop their own, or in India's case, they're more likely scenarios to take one of the open source models out of China. So that's lack of clarity, continuity, and around some of these areas of growth and regulation are causing the kind of business uncertainty that's pushing customers elsewhere. And that could be strategically disastrous for us in the long run.
well, we're seeing it kind of played out in real time right now. Elon Musk has been calling for proactive regulation of AI for at least 5 years. And then, you've got his nemesis, Sam Altman, who is rumored, he people are suggesting that he may have committed murder. And Elon Musk has said that he's stolen a charity. So who do you want to manage your AI?
Well, I don't trust Elon Musk as far as I can spit, but that's just me.
Well, I'd
Um,
love to have that conversation with you because I am a huge Elon Musk fan. I mean,
well,
what is it I need to be concerned about?
well, he's a hype man. He's made a lot of technical promises over the years of things he can't deliver. He often steals the great technologies of other
What
people
has
and
he
takes credit for
promised
them.
that he has not delivered?
Well, there was a fast rail under LA that is never going to come to
Well, I don't
pass.
think that was Elon's project. I think that was Gavin Newsom's project. He
No,
had talked
that was
about
the Elon project.
he had talked about boring from San Francisco to LA, but I think
Elon
he
convinced
concluded
them
it
to do
was
it. The
more
Elon project.
expensive, that there
Yeah.
was not a cost benefit. Um,
The other
to
thing
do
is,
it.
I realize that Elon's becoming wealthy on our tax dollars. His other businesses are good, but they're not. They don't add the great value. The SpaceX is basically and is um, personalizing our space program, and rather than it being our tax dollars going to something that's owned by us, it's basically making one man wealthy.
Well,
I have a
if he
problem
had
with that kind of with that kind of model
if
as
the
an economist.
if the federal government, our federal government, NASA, could have done it better, cheaper, and faster, don't you think they would have done it? Elon Musk has developed the highest payload rocket ever to be developed by man, and it is also reusable. It comes back down and is
It's
captured. I
all
think you're
about
really
innovation and
underselling
engineering. Yeah,
his value, in my opinion.
yeah. I don't think that should be a personal value. I think that should be a national value,
Okay, it's a
and we're
national value.
basically selling
He's
off our
he's
national
he's
value.
putting satellites into outer space that will give the entire world connectivity to the internet and the telephone.
Hmm. At a
What's your
price.
concern about that? Nobody else
It's
has done it.
Well, it's not that they couldn't, and it's not that they wouldn't necessarily, and not that we couldn't otherwise. I'm just not. I don't trust his ethics, and I don't trust his morals.
Well, I
And I don't.
study him every
But that's
day, and I have
that,
for the
that's
last 10
that's a
years.
side issue. We probably are sidetracking here toward the issue that we all affects all of us, which is what do we do with
Well, I
AI?
mean, you've indicted someone I have a tremendous amount of respect and regard for, so
My
I
bad.
feel
My bad.
obligated to challenge you on that statement.
My apologies.
And he's developed the autonomous car, which has the potential to save 45,000 lives in this country every year. It's already safer than the human driver, and when it gets to full autonomy, it should save enormous
Well, see,
lives
that's
and
part of the thing. He takes
paralysis.
credit for developing things that other people have developed.
Well, who
He's
else has
building
developed it?
the Waymo. There's a number. There's half a dozen
Waymo is
companies here,
geofenced. It's only good if you're in a 5 mile radius of it, and it costs
and
120,000, and the robo taxi or robo car costs
what
30.
I'm saying is he has a version of the technology that some people like and some people don't, but he didn't develop the technology itself. He takes credit for those things, but he doesn't develop them.
Well, who developed the Tesla autonomous vehicle? There's no one
He
else
bought Tesla.
like it. It's all vision. And,
He bought Tesla.
huh?
He bought Tesla. He bought
Well,
the
he
Tesla
bought the
company to
electric
develop
car
it.
that Tesla had. Yes, he did
And
buy the
then he started,
company,
yeah,
but
he
they
started
hadn't
adding
paid him.
navigation systems. But
This,
the navigation systems have been made by several companies. There's several companies making these, including Chinese companies, European companies, American companies. So there's a broader competition for some of these things, and I think a lot of people realize.
well, that's fine.
I
Let the free market
apologize. I
system
did not
pick the
mean to
winner.
hurt your hero.
Let the free market system pick the winner then.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, so far, Tesla has got the number one and number two car in the world in terms of consumer adoption. The
I'd
Model
like to.
Y and the Model 3 are the two most popular cars in the world, electric and ICE combined.
I'd like to really see the numbers on that. That doesn't
Well,
sound quite right, but maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
hey, ask Chat GPT.
Mhm.
Well, it's been a spirited, lively conversation towards the end. I'm sorry I ripped off a scab there, Guy, but I do share your enthusiasm and your words of caution about or automated artificial intelligence. It
Yeah.
was getting me to my next question. Super artificial intelligence. Isn't that the one we really have to be worried about?
AGI and super artificial intelligence. Yes, we do. That's the next stage of the development, and we're moving there much faster than most people realize. Um, and the government is moving much faster than the commercial sector. So, because they don't have to worry about scale and multiple consumer issues, they can develop technologies in a lab for specific, more narrow purposes. In the late 90s, I discovered that a program had escaped, a spy program had escaped the NSA labs at Sandia and was never recaptured. And I know it's true because I was able to reverse engineer how they would architect something that could escape and basically stay invisible. And then I basically overlaid why I thought they might want to, what sort of espionage goals what they have with this. And I must have been close enough because they sent two FBI agents to my door.
Can you
Now,
repeat what you just said? Because I think I heard you, but I'm not sure I followed you exactly.
there was an Associated Press article about a spy program that escaped the Lawrence Livermore Labs at Sandia, which is an NSA DARPA spy lab. And it, at first, I thought it might be a typo. I spent close to a year trying to look up the architectures to reverse engineer. If it were not a typo, how would they architect this and why would they design it that way? And I must have been good enough because they sent two FBI agents to my door. The point that I'm
And what did
making is
those FBI agents ask you when they got to your door?
oh, they were freaked out. They were freaked out that I knew about this top secret program that was missing, and they wanted to know how I knew. And I showed them the little three sentence Associated Press article, and then all of my research. And I just said, I'm a nerd. I said, you should hire me.
Yeah.
I was over the top obnoxious with them, which is probably not good, but it was the greatest night ever. But
Kind of
my
like
point,
getting you talking about Elon Musk. Are you saying you were like that? I'm joking.
oh,
I'm I'm
I
pushing
was
your
over the
buttons.
top. I did it. I did it. You guys wouldn't be here if I was wrong. This is so cool. I'm telling all my friends. What part did I get right? Like, hey, you guys want to drink? You can't drink. Hey, you should give me a job. You can't give me a job. It was back and forth. They gave me the "We are not amused" speech. I gave them "What are you going to do about it?" shrug. And then my wife came home and gave me the "Honey, why are there two FBI agents in my dining room? This is better be a damn good story" speech.
How long did they stay with you?
About an hour.
All
But
right. So
that
this
inspired
so
my
this
first book.
technology that escaped the lab did exactly what to spy on.
That was, well, the things that it could do at the time were to turn on your telephone on your desk without turning on the light. It could basically activate your webcam and your web microphone without turning on the light and notifying you in any way. It could use the pixels in the old style of monitor. You can't do it with the new flat screens, but the old style of monitor, you could actually reverse the polarity on the pixels, even if the monitor was off, and use it as a rough camera. I could basically uh, sneak in an application that could stay invisible that could spoof your keyboard, so I could figure out everything you were typing. It was basic espionage stuff, right? And all premised on old chip designs in the early versions of computers where NASA basically collaborated with the chip manufacturers to create backdoors. So these were things that, bits and pieces of information here and there through technical journals over a number of years. And because I was in the tech field and I knew architects and we had a lab and we did all these other things, I could go kind of theorize and then go test out the idea
Well,
with my
so are you telling me that we should probably throw our Alexa device away?
Oh, yeah, they're already listening to you. And if you're not doing anything illegal, for years I knew the FBI was watching me constantly on my phone and computers. And every once in a while I just tease them and I just say, hey guys, did you make sure you get that? You want me to say it again? So if you're not doing anything, illegal, I'm pretty much I don't really fear the law.
I'm kind of where you are. I mean, I think that if someone wants to listen in on our conversations or watch our daily habits, that it would be a wonderful medical cure for insomnia. So just bring it on. I'm happy to help.
That said, I don't agree that the government has the right to privacy to break
No
into my.
question. I'm being flippant.
And the fact that they do it, and I was with Microsoft when the Prism project came from the NSA after 9/11, and so I've been seeing this advance of the ability to watch and see what we're doing on a detailed basis move forward over 25 years. And after 25 years, and I have the ability to project forward where the technology can go. And then I have to ask the question, is our society, is our governance, are we secure from the people in power as much as from the technology? And that's where technology can be abused. And that's where it has been abused in the past. So regardless of which side of the political spectrum you fall on, we have rights as people towards privacy. We have rights to make our own decisions, not be manipulated. And I'm not sure that we have the proper boundaries on this for us to be able to can say that we can do that yet.
Well, I think that's
So
very
I
sound
think
advice. Guy,
personal responsibilities is to cut things off and not listen to a lot of things, but ultimately we need to solve the problem.
That is very good, great observations and advice. It's the AI Tsunami by Guy Morris. Where do people follow your good work and keep tabs with what you're doing, short of spying on you through your phone?
Well, Amazon, you can find me on Amazon and all the other bookstores. I'm distributed through Sunbury Press, but if you want to have more information, trailers, fact versus fiction, my other books, and follow me elsewhere, go to guymorrisbooks.com.
GuyMorrisBooks.com. There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Guy Morris, for coming on The Truth today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure too. Thank you.